Hello and welcome to the Cyberspace podcast by Empirical Training. We are four former colleagues and continued friends who are met in the cybersecurity industry and want to share our cybersecurity experiences and knowledge for people who are trying to get their first job into cybersecurity following the unorthodox paths that we did, or people who are trying to advance their careers into whatever it is that they're trying to get to in the cybersecurity world. Or maybe you're just curious, maybe you just want to stay safe online. You want to understand a little bit more about why you're taking the time to patch your phone when your Apple or Google tells you to. So in this episode, we're continuing the theme of 2023 year in review, and we want to dive into this section some of the big breaches. And I say some of them, we haven't got time to go through all of them, but we picked out some crucial ones that are going to give us a great landing point to discuss the importance of breaches, why they matter to you, whether you're a consumer, why they matter to you as a security analyst, and how you can use them to get your execs, your leaders to actually pay attention to cybersecurity tasks and allocate budget, because this is a huge problem. The more and more that cybersecurity breaches are allowed to continue, the more sophisticated the attackers get as they reinvest those ill-gotten gains into their business, right? Their business of hacking the next person. So I think generally, we all work in cybersecurity organizations. We've all seen breaches happen in real time. They are reality. They are not something that you can avoid 100%. Does anyone have any personal experiences? Actually, do you know what? First, how are we doing? I haven't even introduced us. Robbie, Vaughan, AJ, how are we doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you. How are you doing, Josh? You're out in Oz, enjoying yourself?
Still enjoying yourself?
Still enjoying myself. Haven't changed. You could tell I got my nails done the other day.
Lovely. I got my standing desk all sorted now. It's all set up, but it's the cables are atrocious. I need some serious cable management on the go, and I don't even know how I'm going to fix it. But normally there's a bit of trunking underneath, isn't there? I've got one little block underneath here for me power packs, and then that's about it. So me and Josh are having a desk off at some point, so I need to get mine looking nice and sexy for that moment. And I know we're probably not going to have the desk off now until you get back, but
2024, the year of the desk
2024
off.
Year of the desk off.
Yeah,
I'm coming.
We both moved into places. We're getting quite competitive with our desk setups. And Robbie was the man who taught me how to clean my desk on my first ever job, as well as many other things. But that one stayed with me. So my girlfriend thanks you, Robbie, for that.
Well, you don't clean the rest of the house, though. Don't clean the rest of the house.
Tidy mind.
I know.
As long as your desk is tidy, mate.
Yeah. That's where I spend most of my time, to be honest. It's what I see the most. But she has locked me away in my own room now. So have I. So Robbie is a current security consultant, former SOC lead. Vaughan, current SOC lead, and he doesn't like me saying this, but AI specialist. He works a lot with the ML and
too high praise. Maybe in a few years.
Well, carve out that niche, because everybody's trying to work out the security for AI at the moment, Vaughan. So people will be knocking on your door before long when they realize, oh crap, we built this great thing, we don't know how to protect it.
Yeah, man.
And AJ is a potential bus driver turned cybersecurity analyst. Incident response.
That's actually started to catch on a little bit. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our podcast, by the way. And that's actually caught on in the Discord. If you want to join the Discord and call me a bus driver, then please feel free to do that. But one of our members have already said that they can picture me as a bus driver. So yeah, go back and listen to the first podcast if you want to know where that comes from.
Have you had any bus emojis on the comments yet in socials?
No, not yet, thankfully.
Get those bus emojis in.
So let's all jump on AJ's bus, shall we? And take a journey into cybersecurity breaches. My name's Josh. I'm a former security analyst turned technical marketer. Hence why I've got the smooth podcast voice. So I think breaches. We wanna go on to Andy and take us on this journey. We all bought a ticket. We want to know about the big breach that you've been researching for us.
Yeah, so this is actually, it's kind of funny and obviously kind of serious. They're all serious, but I think it's kind of, you have to laugh about some of the stuff that happens in this industry, otherwise you will cry. But in this case, it is a data breach by a company called Dark Beam, and they're a digital risk protection company. So they're actually in the kind of cybersecurity data protection space. And what they did, they left an Elasticsearch and Kibana instance unprotected and accessible to the internet, which is a big no-no. And effectively, their role as a company is to collect information on its customers about breaches that they've been in, and then tell them about those breaches. So in this case, their customers who were already breached got breached again by a company who was supposed to tell them they had been breached.
Oh
Double
no!
whammy.
So, and it was a
Very
huge
ironic.
one. Yeah, very big one as well. So that's the funny part. This is the not so funny part, that it led to 3.8 billion records. So that was usernames and passwords. And when you actually think about it, is there 8 billion people on the planet? That's nearly half the people on the planet, which is insane for a data breach.
Unless you're in Nan, who's got like 4 accounts.
I
Yeah,
hope
I don't think
people
it's
have
the
been
biggest
multiple
one.
accounts. Oh, sorry, Andy.
No, I was going to say it's not the biggest one. I didn't write it down, but I think the biggest one was about 8.6 billion records. But I can't remember which one it was. But yeah, it's like you say, people do have multiple accounts. So obviously, it's not going to be everybody that is part of that, but still, it's quite insane. And it was quite a simple one as well. So I know I mentioned they left open Elasticsearch and Kibana instance unprotected, but for those of you that don't know, imagine Elasticsearch like a powerful search engine for your data, and then it kind of helps you search through vast amounts of data that are stored on the computers, and then Kibana kind of sits on top of it and works hand in hand with Elasticsearch. It kind of helps you understand the data, kind of produce kind of set of powerful interactive charts and maps. And both of these are used in cybersecurity as well. So a lot of blue team engineers will ingest logs from various servers, endpoints into Elasticsearch, and then to interpret those, then they'll use Kibana then to kind of produce any graphs and things like that in attempt to detect malicious activity. It's a lot more complicated than that, but that's kind of the basis of what they'd left open to the internet. And it was actually a researcher by the name of Bob Diachenko who discovered it on the 18th of September 2023.
Just to demystify Kibana for some of our listeners that might not be familiar, AJ, can you let us know how you access Kibana? Is there an app? Do you use something to search it? Is it a browser? You know, how do you use the search engine?
Yeah, so Kibana is a web browser-based tool. You just log into it, just a front-end portal, username and password. And by the looks of it, that is what was left unprotected. So yeah, you just log into it through your browser, log in, and then it'll give you kind of a search tool then to be able to search across all of this data. And what they've noted is that the cause of the leak seems to be, it says inadequate security measures, like they didn't have password protection or encryption in place. And they've noted that it's from human error. So they say it's failing password protected database post maintenance of the Elasticsearch database. So likely it was quite as simple as just leaving it publicly accessible to the internet, and basically anybody that could find it. So if you have anything that is connected to the internet and does have a password, a default username and password, or is unprotected without any username and password, you can pretty much guarantee that it's gonna get compromised.
So
There's
what you're
two
saying
things
is,
I want.
sorry, Josh, comment.
There's two things I want to pick up on there, because there's the one is the simplicity level. That something that I think we talked about previously when we started into cybersecurity. You thought every attack and every breach is going to be these super complex, people smashing their keyboards to try and break into something essentially on the other side. But often it's people just leaving the metaphorical front door wide open, irresponsibly or negligently. But people do make mistakes, right? It happens.
Yeah.
It's not all to blame. But the other thing I want to talk about is quickly just it's something that our Discord members were asking about the other day. Actually, someone was researching different cloud terminology and technology, and Kibana is you mentioned it's the browser-based search. That's a form of SaaS, SaaS, so software as a service, which is where the owner, Kibana, hosts a Kibana instance for you. They run the operating system. They'll harden that. They own the application. They'll harden it and patch that, but they let you use it however you want to use it. And so they've taken some of the security responsibility away from you, but it's up to you if you want to expose it to the internet. It's up to you if you put a terrible password and don't put MFA in place. And it's not just people using things like Kibana. It's also password problems with passwords goes all the way to the US government, where their nuclear systems were found to have things like password 123 on their systems as well. So obviously that one's a lot less exposed. It's not going to be easily accessible to everybody. I think pen testers found that when they were kind of on the premise and doing it. But the thing with SASE is anyone can access it. That's kind of the benefit of it. Wherever you are in the world, you can log into it and access it. So if you do make a mistake with something as simple as your kind of password hygiene and the configurations there, it's going to be really easily accessible for anyone to break.
Yeah, just on that point as well, I think this is an interesting topic of discussion, where I've just joined this new company now as a temporary consultant, and we're trying to zone in on our USP of why a customer should come and take our security services. And companies are they're all using the same technologies, but one thing that will always be different are the people and the processes. So just like this company now that had the data breach, it was clearly human error and the security architecture that failed, right? So we're showcasing, the company that I'm working alongside now is we're showcasing how robust our people are and how robust our processes can be. And I think that's important to focus on.
That's a great point, and it's something we kind of alluded to at the beginning, how you can use these type of breaches to hit home your point. Why do people and process matter? Well, look at Darkbeam. Look at what happened to them. So whether it's in a sales engagement, which I imagine that's kind of you're looking to sell and position the company there, right, Rob? Or whether it's internally, you're still selling cybersecurity. That's a huge responsibility that I think people overlook when they are first getting into cybersecurity. You're focused on, go back to our last podcast, you're looking at the SQL injections and the remote code executions and the exploits. You forget that part of it is stakeholder management, and it's just being able to, when something is go wrong, you got to be able to talk to them and say, here's why you should care about it. Here's terms that you can understand, because I've also dealt with people who just kind of bamboozled, and they almost think you're the hacker. You're using all these complex terms against me. You want me to take an action. I'm scared. I'm hanging up the phone. And you're like, no, I really need you to take this action right now, or it's going to spill into something bigger. So hopefully Robbie's example and others examples give you an understanding of why breaches are important to understand and how you can use them in your daily life.
Yeah, and another quick point as well, and this is a hot take. It's kind of a spicy statement, but there are companies out there, cybersecurity companies, that will advertise that they can deliver security services to you as the end customer, and sometimes they're not concentrating on their own internal cybersecurity. So they're not monitoring their own systems, but then they're advertising out externally that they can provide security managed services for you. So that happens. That's happening right as we speak. There's tons of companies out there that are employing this tactic right now, because it's a fast way into the market, but they're leaving out a vital piece of the puzzle, which is watching their own back.
Well, perfect example of this company, right? AJ?
Yeah.
And you got to eat your own dog food.
Yeah, exactly. So they are in the industry. So as Robbie's mentioned, if you're in the cybersecurity industry, take things like password security a lot more seriously. It sounds simple, but things like two-factor authentication, and as well, this is for personal use as well. If you're running a major corporation that is able to hold 3.8 billion worth of records, you really need to get the basics down. And I don't want to bash Darkbeam, but I am bashing you because you should have done a little bit better than this. And I am also a little disappointed in the way that is presented. I couldn't really find it on your blog if there's anybody listening from Darkbeam. So it's only assumption is made that this was the reason. So
Interesting.
it would
Yeah,
have been nice.
Barrett.
Yeah, it would have been
We'll
nice
be
to have the full
get him on.
blog post from yourselves to say, this is what happened, this is what our customers need to do. Maybe I haven't found it. If I've missed it, then I'm sorry, but I couldn't find it. So I think, again, going back to the onus being on the company, if you do find a breach, like, you need to own up to it so that everybody involved can help you remediate it.
And let me come in with some stats. I forget the guy on the Joe Rogan podcast who gets the stats. Does anyone else remember what he's called?
JB.
Yeah.
Jamie.
Fingers.
So, this going to back up some of the things we say about how simple some of these compromises are. Verizon DBAR report, so data breach and incident response, 2023. One of my favorite reports that look at kind of the last year in review of how many attacks there were and what kind of attacks there were and what techniques were used. This one is full data for 2022. They haven't had enough time to push out their new one, which I'm sure will be coming in the next few months. And encourage anyone to go and take a glance at that, because they tell you what the top action varieties in breaches are. So breaches, not just attacks, actually where somebody gets in and steals data or causes havoc, actual consequential attacks. What is the top vector? Anyone hazard a guess?
Credential access.
Yes. Use of 10 points to Gryffindor. Use of stolen credentials is top of the list. It's over 40%. And so credential that does mean credential compromise. It means either these days you actually tend to download word lists. So in fact, what these guys, Darkbeam, have added to those word lists, right? There's 3.8 records out there with says 3.8 million
billion.
Yeah, billion.
Yes, billion.
Damn. So there's that many passwords out there that someone can go buy off the internet. And this is another lesson for everyone. If you're using the same password across different websites, this is how they get you. One of them might be compromised, one you might not even care about. haveibeenpwned.com is a great resource to quickly go and check that and show your friends or family why they should care. And if your email comes up on one of those, they have the password that you use on that website. And if you use that for your bank, for your Gmail, for anything like that, then the consequences can be massive. So password hygiene is super important. Use your 1Passwords, your password managers. It's an easy way. Even use your Chrome ones. Not the best, but better than not using a password manager. And then you just have to remember one complex one.
Yeah, definitely. And I think you mentioned Have I Been Pwned? And there's also the one, Vaughan, that you told me about the other day, pentester.com, right? That is insane. I urge you to go and try it. Like, Have I Been Pwned is great. It'll show you if you've been in a breach. But this, pentester.com, you just type in your email address and it'll show you the passwords that is found on the dark web, where most of these breach lists are usually placed. And I've done it myself, and a lot of my old passwords are on there. So you don't want to be reusing passwords. Use a password manager, because most likely, so you're probably wondering, after a leak occurs, like what actually happens, what are the hackers going to do with your data? So a lot of it they might sell, but who actually wants to buy it? So they're usually selling it to other hackers, criminals, who will potentially go and use that then for things such as phishing scams, try and commit fraud and things like that. So that's why we recommend that. It's kind of got to the point now, annoyingly, that everybody's data is out there. Like, I work in cybersecurity, but a big vast of my data is out there, and it's important to use a password manager, but also use a different email address for each account. So if they get your email address, it won't take that long for them to be able to potentially phish you and get your new password anyway. So use a different email address for all your important accounts and use a password manager. Ideally one that is on the host itself, but yeah, use the browser-based ones if you're not using them at all, and tell your friends and family about it as well.
Yeah,
So
offline password managers. Like I use NPass, and then I locally store the database of that password database. I store it in my in my cloud storage, but just because it's easy for me, because it syncs. But if you want to be really
that's risky, isn't it?
It is, but it's safe. It's safer than keeping it in their company server, isn't it? In their company cloud. But you're better off storing it locally offline on your machine, and then storing multiple databases. But yeah, multiple emails as well.
Yeah, it's always the trade-off. of
is key.
Security versus convenience, right? So you might not, to be honest, I don't have the time to create a new email for every single service, but I do have different emails for my important services, ones that don't get shared with many people at all. So depending on your appetite, you could take different steps, but Andy is absolutely right. So and I guess that means that big yellow bus 123 is no longer your password anymore, Andy, after you've sorted that one.
No, it's not. No. And it's funny though, going back to like university days, I didn't do cybersecurity in university, so forgive me for this, but a lot of my passwords were really, really bad. And they were things like Andrew123. Like going back a lot, like before university, I started to clue on a little bit, but I know that people still do this today. Like my parents, I've gone through and created a password manager for them and sat down with them and created new passwords for their accounts. And it's easy to tell people, but some people like my dad especially have no interest in technology. My mother the same. They're just not interested one bit. And especially my grandparents. Actually, I think my grandfather is probably better than my mother, but at the same time, you still have to sit down with them and kind of help them through it.
Do you know what they say though? No one's coming after me. No one wants my stuff.
Yeah.
So why should I care?
Another common one I get is no one will guess my password, and it's something like in the dictionary. Yeah, but why would someone type in washing machine?
Oh yeah, it's so
No one's
random.
gonna guess that. And then that's when you got to explain a word list and a dictionary attack to them.
Yeah. So I mean, on that, let's wrap that one up with passphrases are the way to go. Sorry, AJ, I feel like I'm really bullying you at the moment, but Andrew drives buses is better than a washing machine. You know, it's a phrase and it's easy to remember, and you can also intersperse it with some random characters or you know, leet speak. Use the letters for numbers for letters. And the other one we haven't called out is MFA, right? MFA. You know, multi-factor authentication, where the SMS one is good. The app authenticator apps are even better, but that just means that if they compromise one of your pieces, then they can't compromise the other. So it's very unlikely they'll compromise the other. So
if you want to go one step better as well, you can get a physical key as well, something like a UB key or something like that, where you have to have it on you. So you plug that in. You can use it on your phone as well, I think, actually, but you'd have to plug it into your computer and tap it before you log in. But yeah, the authenticator apps are the next best. And then I would say the text message ones are a bit risky still because of the what's that attack vector called? SIM swapping. Thank you, Vaughan. Yeah.
I think it's good to assess where you are in terms of your like password management strategy. Rank yourself on where you're sitting in terms of very insecure to very secure from a 1 to 10, and then ask yourself, where do you want to be? Do I want to get myself to an 8 out of 10 security level for my personal OPSEC, or am I happy to stay at that 5 out of 10, and then just create a plan, create a little structure of how you want to achieve that.
So I think that great advice, and we've gone down a bit of a rabbit hole again because it triggered so many relevant pieces of advice and insights from us. Vaughan, moving on to you, I think you've got another big breach that can really give us some real world examples.
I do. The one I have to talk about is the MGM breach. So for anyone that's not aware, MGM owns a mass amount of casinos in Las Vegas. And in September 2023, they actually underwent a cyber attack. What this cyber attack did is caused outages in their website, their servers. There was like slot machines in the casinos all offline. There was elevators out of service, and it caused mass uproar in Las Vegas for, I think it was around a week, across multiple hotels and casinos.
I wonder how much money they lost.
Oh, yeah, revenue-wise, I don't actually have any figures, but for a week, I think I do recall reading that they had to go to manual processes for that week, so everything was gone offline. I'm pretty sure they were handing chips and cash over in person, I imagine. But yeah, all online facilities gone.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It was all of the slot machines. So obviously they were still able to deal on the tables and things like that. And a lot of Las Vegas, a lot of the US is still cash based as well. So they were handing cash over to be able to get the chips anyway. But all of the slot machines were all offline. They were all showing up as an error and things like that. And I've got one interesting story from that. I actually know somebody that was there at the time, and they were staying in the MGM hotel, and they connected their laptop to the Wi-Fi. And after about a day or so, their password manager was generating alerts because there was an IP from, I think it was either Russia or China, that was attempting to log into their password manager. And it was only when I texted them then to say, by the way, do you know that Wi-Fi is probably hacked? You should probably disconnect from it. But yeah, I thought that was quite interesting.
Yeah, do you reckon they're using the Wi-Fi to go on the online betting accounts to spin some of their online slots?
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah, so for this attack, I've got a 6-step attack chain trying to simplify what's going on here for any of our non-tech savvy listeners. So the first thing that happened, so it was attributed firstly to a company called a ransomware gang called Black Cat. There was also some murmurs about it being responsible by another threat actor group called Scattered Spider, which I believe actually turned out to be a subsidiary of Black Cat, and they were actually working together on that. Black Cat also have an alter ego called Alpha as well, for anyone that likes the ransomware groups. But yeah, so first step, what went on is they gathered intelligence about MGM and its employees. So referring back to the MITRE ATT&CK framework, for anyone that doesn't know what the MITRE ATT&CK framework is, it's essentially a set step-by-step chain that attackers can go through start to finish, from resource gathering to data exfiltration and taking systems offline. And a lot of these flows that go through these attacks depict this MITRE ATT&CK chain really, really well. But it's interesting to see here that the first step that they actually went through is this resource development technique. So they're actually, I believe it was LinkedIn. They actually went on LinkedIn, searched for IT help desk employees in MGM, gathered the name of an IT help desk person. And then leading on to the step 2, what they actually did is phone up Okta. I believe it was Okta, or they might have been their help desk, and performed a vishing attack. So you guys might have heard of phishing, you might have heard of spear phishing, you might also have heard of smishing. Smishing is smishing.
Are you all right, Vaughan? You're having a stroke?
There's too many things going on, honestly. So phishing, everyone's heard of phishing. Spear phishing is where you target a singular person with a phishing attack. Smishing is everyone's received a smishing attack. Is where you receive an SMS text with a link. You'll commonly see these around like Amazon Prime Day and that sort of thing. You know, if you get a text saying your delivery is held up at customs, you need to go to this link and type in money, that is a smishing attack. And then
do you remember the one, can't believe what you did last night, click here?
Yeah. Yeah, another smishing attack that I'm sure caught a lot of people out, for everyone with a few skeletons in their closet. But vishing, for anyone that doesn't know, is for voice phishing. So it's where threat actors will actually call up help desks and support teams and actually pretend to be a person in a voice phishing attack. So what they've done is they've gathered the intelligence about this person, called up MGM's IT desk. They've actually impersonated this privileged victim that they knew had rights in the environment, and got the IT desk to successfully reset the multi-factor authentication for this victim user. So after they were able to reset the MFA, they were able to gain access to the account, I believe, through probably a dictionary attack or another phishing attack where they actually get them to input their username and password. Once they did this, they actually gained access to the user and had super administration privileges. So not just administrator privileges, they had super administrator privileges.
So they're pretty much God then in the network for people
Yeah.
that are listening out there. There's
Yeah.
no higher privilege that you can get. You can do anything, which is something to note. Is one of the highest privileges that you can get, and it's what attackers are looking for when they're part of the MITRE attack framework is escalation, privilege escalation. So they'd gone through the ranks and they'd made it to the top, and they'd got to God level mode.
King of the castle is what I often use as the simple way to explain it. Yeah,
As Borat.
Borat voice, if you want.
King of the castle.
But
King of the castle.
I think we
Let's hear
shared on that. We shared in the Discord a list of kind of privileged accounts that are out there to our members to show these are the different types of accounts that are out there that attackers are trying to move and escalate to, and obviously that being the absolute top level. And the Okta thing I think is really interesting. Okta kind of come up more often than I'd like them to in different breaches and incidents, but that's another topic for another day.
They're still surviving.
Yeah, just about. But yeah, they gained this Okta super administrator privilege. So they had access into the Okta environment, which is an IAM solution, so identity and access management. So then they had access with these super administrator privileges over all of the users in the MGM environment. So they could change users, they could delete users, they could create new users. And what they actually did using these permissions is created and compromised domain admins. So users with domain level access that can make these network changes, they can take devices offline, they can make changes on domain controllers. They compromised these users. They also compromised admins on the Okta syncing server. So then they could use Okta's resources to move further across the network to areas that they didn't previously have access to. And then they also compromised global administrator in Microsoft Azure. So Microsoft Azure is a cloud environment, and they gained global administrator, which again, coming back to the God mode, is the highest permission level, or the highest role, I should say, in Microsoft Azure. So they could do absolutely everything in their cloud environment as well for MGM then.
Well,
I think that's the. Oh, sorry. I think that's the what I was going to go back to, that we say that they could still make money, that they were still making money during this, as this hack was going on, but they didn't spend any of that money on securing their environment. And I think that's one of the problems that some companies will face, that they'll put profits in front of security. And yeah, every company is out there to make some profit. That's how it works. But you need to be able to secure your environment, because this breach is now going to cost them more than what it would have to have those, and a lot of them, basic security practices in place as well.
I think that's a really good point. It's something that I often work hard to try and make business owners understand the direct link to your business revenue and your operations. Like, what's the goal for businesses? To grow and make money, and they can directly tie things like their intellectual property, their having their systems online. But then they don't tie the next step to those things is protecting that data, protecting the systems, keeping them online. The other one is consumer data, and protecting that too. So there are, cybersecurity is a few hops away from your growth and your revenue. So you should be investing in that if you want to be in here for the long run. Vaughan, a question. I don't know if you know the answer to this, because they don't always say, but do you have any indication of how long it took them to do this? Because Robbie talked about Move It last podcast, that was essentially a one and done exploit. Well, it could be in some examples, it wasn't. But was this the similar thing, or would it take time?
So from the research I've done, once they made themselves known, I'm pretty sure it was, oh no, you're testing, Friday the 10th of September, I believe it was. Once they were known to be in the environment on the 10th, the Friday, I'm pretty sure they had deployed ransomware by the Monday, or it may have even been the Sunday. So the turnaround time was quite long. But there's something in cybersecurity instance called dwell time as well, which is the time that they're in the environment before they're actually detected. And the dwell time for this incident, I don't have the actual number, but the Black Hat ransomware gang did release a statement where they mentioned that they were in the environment for a lot longer than the customer had known about. So they had these Okta servers compromised for a very, very long time before they actually deployed the ransomware and made themselves known.
And that's something that I expected, to be honest. It sounded like it. Ransomware in particular, where you're actually going to encrypt the devices and knock that stuff online rather than just steal the data. You need to make sure you not only get into the system, but you get into enough machines that it is worthwhile. Say if you ransomware one slot machine, all right, we'll put a bit of red tape over that one and we'll fix it and bring it back online. But if you knocked all of them off, then you actually are crippled. You actually more inclined to pay that ransom, because every day that you can't spin those slots and all the other pieces that make you money, you're losing money. So it kind of makes sense to a business-minded person to offer up that cryptocurrency so you can get back online and get making money again.
And talking about being offline, that's a great segue, because Black Cat did, well, spoiler alert, they deployed ransomware to the MGM casinos, but they also compromised Caesar's Palace and the Caesar casinos. And when they prompted both casino owners a ransom amount, MGM declined to pay at the time. I can't remember the figure that they asked for. I think it may have been 30 million plus that they asked for to decrypt all their files. But Caesar's Palace, they actually paid the ransom. So they asked for $15 million to release all their files, and they actually paid. And
Did they release them?
Yeah, and they released them. They did. So all Caesar was back online within a matter of hours after paying the ransom.
Yeah, it's pretty impressive, the levels of patience that these hacker groups have staying in a company's network under the radar for months, sometimes up to a year, just lurking in the backgrounds, traversing, trying to get to where they need to be to get that God mode privilege. And then once they're there, that's objective complete, right? And then they can really set out what they originally wanted to do.
Yeah, once they have these domain controller and global administrator and super user privileges, that's when they can start doing their real plan then. And in this case, part of it was exfiltrating sensitive data from the network. So like you mentioned, Josh, about the intellectual property, I'm not sure if they did exfiltrate any intellectual property, but I think Caesar's Palace and maybe MGM have a reward scheme. And I think there was something like 3.5 million users as part of this reward scheme, and they exfiltrated PPI for every single one of those.
Yeah, I think that kind of goes to the way we've seen ransomware evolve. 2023, you could say, is the year of ransomware, but it's been around for ages. I keep thinking we're going to get tired of talking about it and we're going to move on to something else. But people care about it so much because it's so impactful, and it's kind of, talk to anyone who's non-technical, who's been part of a business, and you say ransomware, they will pick up, oh yeah, we're worried about that. And it's these triple or double or triple extortion techniques that they're now using. Back in the day, it used to be, we'll encrypt your devices so you can't log on to your machine, you can't access your files, and you can't do your work, and then we want you to pay some money. Now it's, we'll exfiltrate that data, and then if you don't pay us, we'll sell it, and that's the double extortion. And sometimes they do these in order, right? They kind of come back to you and they want some more money because they're going to do the next piece. And the third one is they're going to just release it to the public. Okay, we're not going to sell it anymore, we're just going to share it to the whole public so everyone can have it. So Caesar disappointed you pay the ransom, right? Because it doesn't solve the problem. They're greedy, they want some more. There is a bit of honor amongst thieves in some degrees where they might not do, but one, can't trust them. Two, they use that money to reinvest and into their ransomware pieces. And that's what we've really seen, the rise of the ransomware as a service, or RAAS providers who can just focus on that one piece of developing really good ransomware malware and techniques, and then they don't even have to gain access anymore. They let somebody else do that, which is, I think you talked about, there's a few affiliates involved in this, right? A few different groups working together. Likely that's because one of them is really good at one part of this attack sequence. Maybe their initial access is great, maybe their social engineering is great. How about we don't just try and be jacks of all trades, we specialize into one piece of it, and then we come and work together and kind of share out the spoils of our victory.
Yeah, there's such things as initial access brokers, which is exactly what we're talking about, Josh. Companies or ransomware gangs will make a reputation for themselves about being the best at breaking into companies, and they'll have companies compromised and users compromised, but they don't want to do anything with it themselves. They're not interested, and then they'll sell the access to these ransomware gangs that will then go in and finish the job.
I think what it does as well, it shines a light on the lack of urgency and the lack of value that companies associate to security services. Companies all across the world, their main objective is to make money and to grow their business, and then for the most of the time, security and security services can be an afterthought for some companies, and even some big companies. And I know that there's legislations and compliance obligations for certain companies in certain sectors that kind of pin them down and and make it so they have to have some type of security services. But there's for some other companies it's free reign, and they just don't place any importance on it until it's too late.
Mm-hmm. So the final point of this attack chain is the actual ransomware part of the chain. So I'm pretty sure there was 100 ESXi servers using the global administrator privileges in Azure. They actually deployed ransomware to disrupt all the VMs here and the services that run on top of them. And you touched on the phases of ransomware extortion, Josh, and going up to the triple extortion, from the single extortion of the encryption to the second to the exfiltration and threatening to sell and make it public. Part of the triple extortion as well is DDoS. So what the ransomware gang will do is say, if you're not going to pay us, we're going to take the rest of your services offline as well, and actually take down your website and make it known that we are attacking you and you have to pay us. But then there's been murmurs and talks as well about a quadruple extortion as well, which is direct communication with customers and stakeholders of the company as well. So I think I'm not sure if it's MGM's case, but another case I was reading up on, a company had been compromised and they were refusing to pay, and they actually went to shareholders of that company, and I believe one of the shareholders was Apple, and there was Apple PPI in the data that was stolen, and they were saying to Apple, if we have data on you, if this person doesn't pay, we're going to release your data as well. So that's like a four-pronged approach to try and achieve their objective of receiving that money.
Interesting. I actually thought quadruple was the DDoS. I didn't realize it's part of the triple. It's too many parts of it. Stages right now. Maybe 2024 prediction, will we see quintuple extortion? Maybe that's something we can talk about, what that could be. Just want to take a step back quickly though. DDoS, you mentioned it and how it takes servers offline. Could you just give us a brief explanation for people who might not know what a DDoS attack is?
Yeah. So probably one of the most famous DDoS attacks is against Microsoft and Xbox. I think PlayStation also had one in some recent years. But what attackers will do is create a botnet, which is essentially a massive group of compromised computers, and that can be things from your grand's laptop to some of these Internet of Things, fridges and toasters, anything connected to the internet that can be compromised. And they add it to their bot army. Think of it like a zombie army that they can command to do whatever they like. And what they'll do is they'll set this zombie army of compromised computers to all try and connect to a singular server or a website or send requests all at the same time. And what this does is overload the server or the website with so many requests that the hardware that's being used to back this website or server just doesn't have the facilities to actually absorb all the traffic that's coming into it and keep it online. So I think, I can't remember the exact number, maybe someone will find it, but there's been DDoS attacks in the gigabytes of data coming in, and it's obscene the amount of traffic that they can send to take stuff offline.
Oh yeah, because someone quickly searched the biggest, because it might be terabits. I don't know, it's huge, but
I've got
I think that's great.
requests, 398 million requests per second.
Is it?
So that's imagine someone tapping F5 390 million times in a second, basically, is what's going on. And that's a great explanation, Vaughan. The one I like to use for people who maybe even less technical is actually there's almost a form of legitimate DDoS attack, right? Where so it's not the zombie armies, where it's people, because it has the same effect. And this is why it's really difficult to defend against. They aren't necessarily attacks that's being leveled against it. It's just standard requests, but it's so overwhelming they fall over. Yeah. So for the UK, if you go try to buy Glastonbury tickets, or if you're in the US, you try and buy Taylor Swift tickets. When you try and log on to that, they release the tickets at a certain time. Everyone logs on at once. Everyone is trying to refresh and get access. Sometimes the server falls over and you get a kind of 404 response or something like that. So that just kind of shows that how DDoS is so difficult to defend, because you can't really tell the difference between a Taylor Swift fan and a zombie fridge coming at you.
Yeah, no, the answer actually is 2.54 terabits per second. And it was the attack targeted Google services, so that's recorded as the biggest DDoS of all time in 2017.
Can't even imagine. Terabits is such a hard thing to imagine. And I think some good videos out there that show the kind of Corridor Digital on YouTube actually show the kind of them in relation to each other onto like scale of them against the planet. That's an interesting one if you understand the difference between tera and giga and all the other types of bits. I should make a mention that I was kind of a bit inaccurate, that you can tell the difference between fridges and people, because there's bot management, bot protection that can kind of put a capture up to check if you are a Taylor Swift fan or if you are a fridge. But yeah, I think that's really really interesting kind of two breaches that we've looked at today. Again, we don't have time to kind of dive into all of the ones, and I'm sure there are other breaches that people might have thought, hey, why don't you talk about that? 2023 was huge because of X, Y, and Z. Maybe even some more of the Okta breaches could be quite interesting. And Rob, I know we need to talk about supply chain compromise at some point, because it keeps on coming up, but that is a big conversation for us maybe another day. So any closing thoughts, gentlemen, on what we've kind of the simple kind of one and done attacks we've looked at, the mistakes, and also the kind of more complex, more contrived multiple gangs going against one target? What are the key takeaways for us here?
The way that I notice is just everybody stick to the basics. When you're starting off with security, focus on the basics and then build up from there. Because like these attacks, especially MGM, that they've got compromised, even with Dark Bream, it's the basics. They've had their credentials compromised. Simple things such as multi-factor authentication, as we mentioned. But yeah, for me, it's just stick with the basics.
Good place to start.
Yeah, for me, I would say, well, the Dark Beam, the MGM, when they were calling up and socially engineering, it was the MGM one, wasn't it?
Yep.
It's going back to AJ's point, is erring on the side of caution. Just think that everybody is trying to scam you. That if you're working for a company, and you're always going to be heading in the right direction there. So if somebody's calling you up pretending to be a certain person, then you probably want to validate that first before you execute on something that can have a massive impact on the business. So yeah, keeping it to the basics.
It's a healthy level of paranoia, right? Especially if the person on the phone is trying to use the technique of urgency. You need to do something now, or I need this right this second. That's a technique that these hackers employ to try and cause you to perform an action you wouldn't with careful consideration.
Yeah, it's a great points. And I think, if people are keen for us to try and do an episode where we look ahead to 2024, let us know in the comments, because I think there's a lot of stuff we can unpack to how things are going to evolve further based on previous trends or based on new technology. So that just reminded me of, like you talked about, vishing and smishing being the new phishing pieces. We're also getting I forget the term for it now. It's another type of ishing probably, where they're using the deep fakes, where they're using voice generated, artificially intelligence generated voices to actually go and say, hey, look, I am that person. And we talk about verification and kind of double checking something. If you get an email and then you kind of call a number and you have your CEO's voice who says, yeah, this is me, transfer that money to this thing, that we're already seeing impacts of people actually transferring large sums of money because of that, and even do deep fakes with videos. I know companies that have had unsuccessful attacks against them, but it actually is a full video of their CEO talking to them and saying, can you transfer this to me? This is me verifying my initial email request. So they're going to get more and more sophisticated, and we're going to have to find other ways to kind of vet and advise people to check these things.
Yeah, on that point, this is a true story, and I don't even know why I did it, but we were having a funny conversation with my mum, and I told her, I said, if anybody tries to call you up pretending to be me to extract any type of information or send money, they have to know the safe word. So me and my mum and my sister have got a safe word on the phone, so I have to give them that safe word. Otherwise, no deal.
You want to share it with us, Rob?
It's a secret.
Oh, he's passed. They are. That's a bit of tip I didn't expect to have. Create a safe word with your mother and your sister.
Create a safe word. Yeah, that's a weird ending.
Well, I think that's a great place to end it. So again, Robbie, Vaughan, AJ, thank you very much for taking the time to kind of share those insights in 2023. I think we only covered 2 breaches. We covered a lot of ground within there. My name's Josh. We're part of Empirical Training. We're looking to help people get into cybersecurity and help people just generally understand more about it, to share this information that is so freely out there, but maybe might not be accessible to everybody. So thanks for listening. Please let us know what it is you want to hear more from us. Join that Discord. That's the best way to get in contact with us. We do respond to everybody. We write CVs for people. We give advice, and we just generally chat about nonsense that maybe just like we've done today. So great. Thank you, boys, and thank you for listening.
Thanks,
Thank you very
Josh.
much.